Welcome back. The Department of Defense has a new Assistant Secretary of Defense for Indo-Pacific Security, among other spots. The Senate confirmed Eli Ratner and 5 other national security nominees. Suzanne Spaulding, Senior Advisor of Homeland Security at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. She's former Undersecretary for the National Protection and Programs Directorate at the Department of Homeland Security. Suzanne, welcome. It's good to see you. These nominations and confirmations lead me to the concept of the next generation of national security professionals. You're thinking and writing and talking about how to develop that, especially through civics and civic education. What's the role that plays in developing this next generation that will be the second half of the Biden team and whatever administration succeeds his, developing a new cohort for the national security community?
Such a great question, Francis. Thank you for introducing the subject. It is one that is very near and dear to my heart. I think civics education is critical for our entire population to be able to sustain our democracy. So I see it as a national security imperative. But it's particularly important, I think you're right, for that generation, next generation of leaders in our national security community, whether it's in the military or civilian national security positions. It's so important to not just know that there are 3 branches of government and how our government is structured, but why. So to not only understand what the rules are, that we have posse comitatus, for example, that limits the role of the military inside the United States, but why do we have that? What is the history? What are our shared values, our shared principles that underlie that? When we talk about how public servants in national security and across government take an oath, not to the president, but to the Constitution. Why is that? What is it about our democracy and our shared values and principles that led to the development of an oath to the Constitution? And so I think it is critically important as we confront the challenges that are threaten to tear apart our democracy, quite candidly, that our leaders understand what our shared values are, what our principles are.
I don't mean to imply with the comments that I made that I'm worried that the next generation is not prepared. One of the things, as things have started to open up and people are getting together in person again, one of the things I'm reminded of is that the young people who are from Washington or who come to Washington to kind of fill the funnel are as talented and capable as they've ever been. But I am also reminded by the human capital experts that I deal with in government that if you're not constantly nurturing that cohort, that eventually the risk is that could go away. What are the most important things that you think the national defense community can do, both in and out of government, to continue to perpetuate that funnel, to continue to provide the kind of information and education that you just described?
Yeah, so there are 2 issues that you've raised there. One is to make sure that we have a pipeline of talent that we are continuing to nurture, and that is diverse as our population, that brings that diversity of viewpoints and perspectives that will enhance our national security and without which we cannot be as secure. And so there are wonderful organizations out there like Girls Security, on whose board I have the honor of sitting, but many others that are working to diversify that pipeline, and we need to continue to encourage that. But as you say, we're drawing these leaders from the population, and they are only as well prepared as our education system enables them to be. And that's why I think it's so critically important that we reinvigorate civics education in schools all across the country. We've allowed it to atrophy. And unfortunately, in part because of the emphasis we've put on STEM. We need strong STEM education, but we need to understand that we need strong civics education to advance our national security as well.
There's a delicate dance, though, isn't there, about what various people in localities and states believe civics education is and what it should comprise. Is there a risk of trying to determine that from one certain location, whether it's Washington or a state capital or whatever, or is the risk that it becomes subject to whatever somebody in some jurisdiction thinks is appropriate?
Yeah, and it's a great question, Francis. We again, this goes back to some of our fundamental principles, which are that the content of education is set at the state and local level. That doesn't mean that the federal government doesn't have a really important role to play in promoting civics education generally, in being able to provide resources to support the reintroduction and reinvigoration of civics education in high school and in elementary school. So there are appropriate roles to play. The federal government should not be setting content, and the bipartisan bicameral legislation that's been introduced in Congress is very clear about that. The federal government needs to play a role in helping to reinvigorate civics without setting the content. Wonderful groups like iCivics have set forth a roadmap for democracy. And that's important as well, to give a sense that we're not just teaching the three branches of government, but the role of individuals in holding those institutions accountable, in being more effective agents of change to move us toward that more perfect union.
Suzanne, 30 seconds left. How does one measure, or can one measure, the benefit to the national security community in some tangible way, or is it an intangible that one senses at some point in the future?
Well, it is. I think it is hard to measure the impact on national security. You can certainly assess the level of civic literacy within our national security ranks, within our government. You know, there's a law on the books that requires civilian departments and agencies to provide civic education to its employees on Constitution Day, in September. And I think we need to dust that off and get back to some civics education for our adult population as well.
Suzanne Spaulding, thanks very much as always. Wonderful to have you on the program again.
Great to be here.